One of the many misunderstandings among Christians is the belief that if we could only get back to Eden, all would be well. If only we could get back to the purity and the sinlessness of the garden before the fall, then and only then will we truly be free. But seen as a part of the big biblical picture, this desire for a return to Eden is a naive attempt to go backward to a time that was transitory in nature. The entire movement of biblical and human history has always been a movement forward. The Bible story starts with a garden. It ends with a garden city. It begins with pure and undefiled humanity set in the midst of a cosmic battle. It ends with pure and undefiled humanity victorious over an enemy put to death. One of our problematic perspectives has been that some of us have considered a mere return to Eden as the destination. But even for Adam and Eve, Eden was never the destination. It was only a stop on the way to the new heavens and the new earth. Even if we had never turned against God, a third of the angels already had and were corrupting the cosmos. God appointed us to judge and remove them. Instead, we partnered with them against the Creator. The words in Genesis chapter 1, "in the beginning," refer to the beginning of the created universe as we know it. But the biblical story tells of another time that existed in eternity past. We find that beginning, time before time, in the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. John chapter 1 verses 1 through 2. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. John chapter 1 verse 3. In the beginning, the real beginning, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, perfect in unity and being, lived together in their eternal world called heaven. Sin did not yet exist anywhere. Neither did darkness. Long before humans were sent to defend the earth, an angel rebellion arose, first in heaven. Lucifer decided his station as chief worship leader of heaven was insufficient. We find this passage in Isaiah chapter 14. The prophet is speaking poetically about the king of Babylon, but scholars agree that the imagery is drawn primarily from an account of Satan's own fall. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn! How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Isaiah 14:12-14. The idea of becoming like God, or of even overtaking his throne to rule, was not a new concept in Isaiah's audience. It started with Satan's heavenly rebellion, made its way to earth in the fall of humanity, Genesis 3:5, continued in the story of Genesis, Genesis 11:4, and even continues to this very day. All sin is, in essence, an attempt to overthrow God's rule and claim, to hijack parts of God's creation for our own. We didn't create anything. so we have no independent claim to anything. It's impossible to fully block all of God's power because He made us, and that would mean rejecting our own lives, all existence, real or even imagined, because God created our own imagination too. Nevertheless, plunging headlong into spiritual insanity, Lucifer, meaning light bearer, sacrificed his name and identity to become the Satan, meaning adversary. The result was both predictable and tragic. Satan enlisted an army, taking 1/3 of the angels, and brought war to the very courts of heaven. The first war. The Almighty prevailed, of course, and Satan was cast down along with his fellow fallen spirits. They swiftly set up shop, corrupting the young earth prior to the dawn of humanity. Their evil grew until they forced God's hand of judgment with what we now call the Ice Age. Then God remade the earth out of the chaotic void it had become, Genesis 1. And God sent us, humanity, to receive physical bodies and guard and protect the earth by the supernatural power of God in our very command. Dismayed, but not totally defeated, Satan then shifted his strategy, persuading a physical serpent into partnership as his spokesman in the garden. Satan convinced Adam and Eve to step outside of God's safe boundaries for them. This plunged all of humanity into spiritual insanity for thousands of years, as human governments, symbolized as wild, unreasonable beasts in the Bible, rose and fell, one after another, each failing to restore true order and justice on the earth. Immediately upon securing humanity's consent and cooperation, notice how Satan uses his new co-leadership position to promote persecution of the godly among many corrupt governments throughout human history. Remember, it was never God who allowed this. It was we who allowed this. Seeing throughout time and space in a vision, St. John describes it by saying, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. It was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people, language, and nation." Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 and 7. Satan knew he could not prevail over God. He tried that once and it failed miserably. So he changed his tactics and tried to convince humanity to allow him to set up an eternal kingdom here in the physical dimension, also known as the cosmos or the first heavens, referring to the sky and the air around our bodies. Our original mission was simple. We were to keep listening to God until the supernatural authority vested in our words drove all dark spirits out of God's physical creation, freeing the world from all evil and suffering once and for all. As we can see, we failed at that mission. Instead of choosing to listen to our captive, we listened to the voice of the enemy. Instead of trusting God, we chose to trust the voice of the accuser. We fell, and all the animals, plants, and elements in creation fell as a result of our surrendering our God-given position as guardians of the cosmos. Our fall into spiritual insanity gave Satan a shared dominion over the physical creation, ruling through our broken hearts and minds. God did not allow this. God put us in charge. We decide how much light or darkness to welcome into us and into our world. We are still deciding whether to receive or reject Jesus, the light personified. Thankfully, by His grace, God had a backup plan. With our fall into madness arose the need for another physical human to rise and fight for what was lost here in the physical plane. God volunteered for the suicide mission. He became a man, lived a perfect life, suffered, died, and rose again. Christ's victory on our behalf took the world back. On the day Christ rose from the dead, He reestablished His ownership, authority, and dominion over the earth. Once again, God owned it all. Now, here is something utterly remarkable. Upon regaining, re-winning, and reestablishing His authority on earth, Christ did the unbelievable. He gave it all back to us. To make sure no question was in anyone's mind, Christ chose His last sentences on earth very, very wisely. You heard it called the Great Commission. We might also call it the Great Comeback. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw Him, they worshipped Him. But some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." Matthew 28:16-20. This may seem a kind of strange logic. Rather than following human reasoning, which would claim, you've already done that, you already gave humans authority, and look what they did with it. Don't give them a second chance. God went ahead and reestablished humanity, now united with Christ, as the guardians once again over the physical realm. He is enough to fall in love with forever. So what is our mission on earth? Once again, it is the same as the original mission given to Adam and Eve. Protect all creation and drive out all darkness. See how St. Paul states it in the book of Romans. The God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. Romans 16:20. Notice Paul didn't say that God would crush Satan under Christ's feet. He said He would crush Satan under your feet. That's because you are his body, and you are his feet and hands and royal presence here on earth. God was, in effect, commanding us to fight so we may secure his victory.